What's going on, everyone? Mr. Octagonal here, and we are back with the 3 Minutes on the Clock podcast, Season 2, Episode number 14. Today we have NFL Mock Draft 10.0. Draft season is winding down. The NFL Draft kicks off this Thursday, and at this point next week, the draft is going to be pretty much done, which is really hard to believe, but, time does fly. So if you remember last year, the final Saturday before the draft, I did a 7-round mock draft, and that's what we're going to be doing again today. Full 7-round mock, no trades, because I think that's a little bit too crazy. And then this is what I think will happen, not what I would do. I will be doing a what I would do mock within the coming days, but this is predicting what will happen. I'm trying to predict the future here. I don't agree with all of these picks. I don't think all of these picks are good selections, but I'm just trying to predict the future, essentially. And we got a lot of draft content coming within the next week. On Tuesday, I will be doing a what I would mock. That's probably going to be 3 rounds. I don't think I'm going to have any trades. Then Wednesday, I will release my final big board. Thursday, I will have a 1-round mock with trades. Friday, we'll do a day 1 recap, day 2 mock or something like that. Same thing for Saturday. And then next Sunday, I will be releasing draft grades for all 32 teams. So a lot of exciting stuff to look forward here with the channel and the NFL Draft. So let's get right on into it. With the first pick, this is pretty easy. Not much of a discussion here. Joe Burrow, quarterback out of LSU, going to the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a very easy choice for Cincinnati. There's no reason to overthink this. This is the pick, and I think this is the right pick. Joe Burrow is easily my QB1 in this year's draft, and the Bengals need that guy. And obviously, I think the big storyline with this pick is, does Burrow really want to play in Cincinnati? Are the Bengals going to ruin him? I don't get this negative connotation that people are giving the Bengals. They're not as bad of an organization as you might think. Yeah, they have not won a playoff game, I think, since sometime in the early 90s, but this is still a quality organization. They had a winning record this decade, and obviously the last few years haven't been great. The ownership isn't the best. Mike Brown is not a phenomenal owner, but there are far worse organizations in the NFL than the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think there's no reason for Joe Burrow not to want to be a Cincinnati Bengal. I think this is a very good pairing, and I think Burrow will be a star. The second pick is also fairly obvious to me. The Redskins are going to pick up Chase Young, edge rusher out of Ohio State. They could move back. Maybe a team like the Dolphins or the Chargers wants to move up here to pick 2. It's possible, and if the Redskins get an offer they can't refuse, go ahead and take it. But I would be surprised if that does happen, and if they stay with this pick, I think it has to be Chase Young, and I think if they choose any other player, it would be a bad selection. Chase Young is the best player in this year's draft class by a somewhat considerable margin. Now, the Redskins have bigger holes at other positions, like offensive line and corner, but drafting for need is how to get fired in this league. Guys like Tristan Wirfs, Jeff Okudah, Jedrick Wills, all good players, but I think you got to go Chase Young, and the Redskins do need some help on the front 7. Their defensive line is really solid. You got your 3-4 ends in Jonathan Allen and Matt Ioannidis, your nose tackle in Daron Payne, your edge rushers in Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan. That's a quality group, but Kerrigan's not getting any younger. He showed signs of a little bit of regression last year, so I think Chase Young can be the permanent replacement for Ryan Kerrigan, and that's a really good group of guys going after the quarterback. Pick 3, this is really where the draft starts. I think the Lions will trade out of this spot. General Manager Bob Quinn said yesterday that he is open to dealing this pick, and as a Lions fan, I hope that we do move back to 5 or 6. But I think if we keep the pick, I think it will be Jeff Okudah, corner from Ohio State. And I've been flip-flopping. Is it going to be Jeff Okudah? Is it going to be Isaiah Simmons? I think there's a legitimate shot that the Lions do pick Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker hybrid out of Clemson. That's who I had them picking in my last mock with Jeff Okudah on the board. However, the more I think about it, I think Okudah is the more likely pick. As a Lions fan, I'm hoping it's Isaiah Simmons, but I'd be very happy with Jeff Okudah as well. The Patriots' way is building on the secondary. A lot of teams like to build up their pass rush first and then focus on the defensive backs. The Patriots are the opposite. Go out and make the secondary good before you worry about the pass rush. So I think Jeff Okudah, fit-wise, makes a lot of sense. And the way Jeff Okudah has presented himself in interviews and stuff, I'm extremely, extremely impressed. I think this guy's going to be a star. Back at the Combine, one of the reporters made a comment that Okudah was weak in like discipline and stuff, and Okudah just snapped back at him. I mean, he said that he had no pass interference penalties, no holding penalties. I mean, it wasn't like a hurtful snapback, but he got him. And then in an interview with Mel Kiper this week, they've over at ESPN had a lot of draft prospects come on, ask about their stock. Okudah did not ask about his. He asked about his teammates, Damon Arnett. So this is a guy who's a team-first player. I think he's I think he has the right mentality to be a star in this league. And even though I want the pick to be Isaiah Simmons, I'd be very happy with Okudah. I do think the Lions are better at corner than most people think. Don't sleep on Amani Oruwariye. But I think Okudah will be the number one player on our boards, other than Chase Young, obviously. And I think this pick does make sense. At pick 4, the Giants are going to go Isaiah Simmons, linebacker, safety, just a defense player in general, out of the University of Clemson. The Giants have some options here. They could look to trade down as well, or they could go the Dave Gettleman route, build their team from a line of scrimmage. Offensive line is certainly an option. Guys like Jedrick Wills, Tristan Wirfs, Andrew Thomas, Mekhi Becton even. They could also look at defensive line. They don't really need interior defensive line, but this is Dave Gettleman, so you never know. He made a comment saying the other day that you can never have too many great players at a position, which is technically true, but if you're the Giants with so many holes, there's no reason to take a guy like Derrick Brown here. Offensive line, as I said, could be an option, but I think it's really going to be hard to pass up on Isaiah Simmons. Some may say, the Giants have a similar player in Jabril Peppers. That's technically true, but Jabril Peppers is not Isaiah Simmons. Isaiah Simmons is a superstar. This is a guy you can have in coverage. He can match up against tight ends. You can put him in the slot. I think he's going to be an in-the-box safety in this league, kind of like a Derwin James type of player, and I think this would be a phenomenal selection for the Giants. At pick 5, the Dolphins select Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback out of Alabama. Throughout this whole pre-draft process, I have had Herbert ranked higher than him, and the past couple days, I've been really wishy-washy on who my QB2 is, and I don't think either of these guys deserve it. I think Tua is an overhyped prospect. I think Justin Herbert's a little bit overhyped to an extent as well. And I don't think I'd pick either of those guys here at 5 or 6, to be honest. But I do think the Dolphins will go quarterback. And if they do go quarterback, I don't think Tua is a bad pick. He does have some question marks, obviously, with the durability. That's a massive concern for me. And that's why he's not my QB2. He had the hip injury back in November. And he's had durability issues in the past as well. So his health is really in question. But Tua has the intangibles to be a star. He knows how to play quarterback. He has the poise. He has the anticipation. Phenomenal decision-making in the pocket. I don't think he has the athletic traits to ever be like a Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson. But I think his ceiling could be a borderline top 5 quarterback in the league. But I think because of his injury issues, he has a lower floor than he would otherwise as well. Personally, I expect the Dolphins to move up to 3 and select Tagovailoa. But if he is on the board at 5, I think they would be even happier to select him. At 6, the Chargers are going to go Justin Herbert, quarterback out of Oregon. I'm a Duck fan. I like Herbert. I don't love him. He has the build to be a star. He has the physical traits that you want in a quarterback. Big guy, big arm, and he's mobile. But the accuracy and the decision-making is very inconsistent. He has a great deep ball, but some of these short and intermediate patterns are not great. I think Justin Herbert is still really raw. I think he needs time to develop. And if I'm the Chargers, I would start Tyrod Taylor over him for most of this season. So I think this is a good pick for LA. But I think that you got to have Tyrod be the guy over Herbert, at least for the start of this season, and see where it brings you. At 7, Derrick Brown, interior defensive line out of Auburn to the Panthers. I could see Carolina trading down. I think they're in rebuild mode now. Cam Newton, Ron Rivera, Luke Kuechly, they're all gone. And I think this is going to be the start of a new era in Carolina, and I think they could look to trade down, accumulate more draft picks. In my last mock, I had them moving down to 17, where the Cowboys went up to 7 and picked Jeff Okudah. I could see something like that happen, especially if Okudah is on the board. But since he's not, and since there's no trades, they're going to go with Derrick Brown, fits a need, just a run-stuffing defensive lineman. You want to be physical at the line of scrimmage, and Derrick Brown is exactly that. Not a phenomenal pass rusher, and I think his ceiling is hindered by that a little bit, and that's why I probably wouldn't pick him this high. But as a sheer football player, this is more than fine value. At 8, Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle, Alabama, to the Cardinals. I've been saying since January they should pick offensive tackle with this selection. Once they traded for DeAndre Hopkins, that became even more evident. And I'd be pretty surprised if the Cardinals don't go tackle here. Maybe if Derek Brown is on the board, maybe they pick him. But other than that, I do thoroughly expect this pick to be an offensive tackle. And I'm going to go with Jedrick Wills. He's going to slide right in at right tackle and be a day one starter, the best pass blocker in this draft. He was Tua's blind side last year for Alabama, and Jedrick Wills is one of the more polished offensive tackles entering this year's draft, and I think this is a very solid selection for the Cardinals. At pick 9, the Jaguars select Javon Kinlaw, interior defensive lineman out of South Carolina. There have been some medical concerns starting to arise with Kinlaw, maybe with his knee, and I think that is a little bit questionable, and I think if it weren't for the medical, he'd be the easy pick here. If it weren't for the medical, I'd probably personally pick Javon Kinlaw over Derek Brown, but now that this stuff is starting to come up, I'm getting a little bit wary of Kinlaw, and I think if the Jaguars are scared of that, then maybe they move down here, and a team who could look to move up is a team like the Atlanta Falcons. They've been rumored to wanting to trade up for guys like Kinlaw or C.J. Henderson, and if the draft plays out like this, I wouldn't be surprised to see Jacksonville trade out of this selection. They're rebuilding as well. They need more draft picks, but if they do keep this pick, I think they're in a little bit of a limbo here. But I do think it would still be Javon Kinlaw, who's a super talented player, phenomenal pass rusher from the middle of that defensive line. This is the type of player that Jacksonville needs in the middle of their defense to go after the quarterback. At pick 10, Tristan Wirfs, offensive tackle out of Iowa, to the Cleveland Browns. He's my number one offensive lineman in the draft, and it's really close between these top 4 tackles. For me, it's Wirfs. Can't really go wrong with any of them, to be honest. But Tristan Wirfs is a very solid player. He's versatile. You can have him at guard or tackle. Kind of reminds me of a guy like Brandon Scherff, also another Iowa Hawkeye. Scherff was originally drafted as a tackle out of college, moved quickly to guard, and is one of the better guards in the NFL. So if the Browns are getting Brandon Scherff 2.0, not a flashy pick, but I don't think they'd be too upset. At pick 11, the New York Jets are up. They could look at a guy like Mekhi Becton, who is still on the board, but I think CeeDee Lamb and some of these other wide receivers are going to be too tempting, and I do have the pick being CeeDee Lamb, a wide receiver out of Oklahoma. The Jets spent a lot of money on the offensive line in free agency. Not that many of those were good signings. George Fant, 3 years, $30 million, ouch. But CeeDee Lamb will be the pick regardless. They could look at offensive line with this pick. I probably would pick Mekhi Becton if I'm being honest, but you can't really go wrong with any of these top 3 receivers either. I think you could put them in any order. For me, CeeDee Lamb is my wide receiver 2 in this draft class, but if they did pick him over Jerry Jeudy, who's my wide receiver 1, I don't think it would be a bad pick for the Jets. Get themselves a playmaker for Darnold. CeeDee Lamb makes his money after the catch, super crafty, dynamic athlete, and I think this is a nice pick for the Jets. At 12, the Raiders, they have a pressing hole at wide receiver. Got Henry Ruggs on the board, got Jerry Jeudy. I said I'd pick Jeudy, but once again, you cannot go wrong with Henry Ruggs. And I'm pretty sure Al Davis is jumping up and down in his grave right now because this is the most Raider-like pick ever. Why not enter Las Vegas, not only picking a flashy player that's going to sell jerseys and tickets, but is also kind of your roots in Oakland, getting these dynamic athletes. Ruggs is obviously a speedster, ran 4.27 at the Combine, fastest player in this year's draft class. Super dynamic after the catch as well, but he's not just a speed guy. This isn't John Ross who the Raiders are getting. Henry Ruggs has really good hands, very solid route runner, and if you have him as your wide receiver 1, I see why, because he is a really talented player. He's my wide receiver 3, but you could put these top 3 guys in any order. At 13, Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver Alabama to the 49ers. He's the most polished receiver in this draft class for sure. I don't think he has the ceiling that CeeDee Lamb or Henry Ruggs has. And I'm the type of guy who usually ranks high ceiling players over high floor players. But this instance is a little bit different because Jerry Jeudy is such a good football player. Phenomenal route runner, one of the best to come out in recent years. Excellent hands. I think he'll have anywhere between 1,000 and 1,200 yards as a rookie year 1. I think he'll be Jimmy Garoppolo's number 1 receiver. Technically not really because George Kittle is still his top target. But if a wide receiver position, I think Jerry Jeudy's going to be his guy. And I think this offense would get even better with this selection. I think the Niners could look at defense here. They could look at corner. They could look at interior defensive line if Javon Kinlaw or Derek Brown was on the board. A lot of Niner fans don't want interior defensive line. I had them getting Kinlaw a couple weeks ago. They did not like it. I mean, I don't really get why. This was before medical stuff came out too, so a healthy Kinlaw I think would be an excellent pick here. But Niners fans want these receivers, and with Kinlaw gone and Jerry Jeudy still on the board, I think it's pretty easy. Bucks at 14, I love this pick. Andrew Thomas, tackle out of Georgia. I think this makes so much sense for the Bucks because they're trying to win now with Tom Brady. I don't see them drafting a quarterback super high. I think they recognize they have a 2-year window with Brady. He signed a 2-year contract. I think this is it for him in the NFL. I think you're going to see 2 more years of Tom. And I think the Bucks, rather than trying to win now but also focus on the future, I think they're just going to go head on to win right now. And why not only pick a need, but pick the most polished player at that position in the entire draft class. Thomas is going to be a day one starter. Plug him right in on this Buccaneer offensive line, and he's going to be great. I think he has the lowest ceiling of these top 4 offensive tackles. However, he's still a phenomenal player. I believe he's currently my offensive tackle number 2 in this draft class. I'm still working on my board. I still have a lot of tough decisions I want to make with that. But Andrew Thomas is a phenomenal football player. At pick 15, Mekhi Becton, tackle out of Louisville to the Denver Broncos. I think if one of those 3 receivers is on the board, they're going to be the pick. They could look at a guy like Justin Jefferson here. However, since it's a deep receiver class, I don't think the Broncos should go there in round 1. They could look at corner. C.J. Henderson is still on the board, but I do have it being Mekhi Becton. They need another tackle. Juwan James is fine, but on the left side, Garrett Bowles is a mess. He is not a good player. Have Becton come in. You can have Bowles start early this season because Mekhi Becton is still raw, but I think he has the highest ceiling of any of these offensive linemen in this draft class, and this will be a nice pick. At 16, C.J. Henderson, cornerback out of Florida to the Falcons. Apparently they want to trade up for him. Here he falls right into their laps, and they're going to run this one up to the podium. I think I saw something that said 40% of GMs, or at least one GM thinks that 40% of teams have C.J. Henderson ranked higher than Jeff Okudah. I think 40% is a bit high. I wouldn't be surprised if some teams do have C.J. Henderson as the top corner, though. Phenomenal cover corner, great ball skills. Reminds me a lot of Greedy Williams coming out of last year's class. I was super high on Greedy Williams. I don't know how he fell to the second round. I was shocked when that happened. I had him as a borderline top 10 player in the class. And I think that's probably where I have C.J. Henderson as well. I think C.J. Henderson is going to be a little bit better than Greedy, though. Obviously, their weaknesses are the exact same. Tackling, effort, and tackling. But as I said, phenomenal coverage skills, very good ball skills, really athletic. So I think this will be a very solid selection for the Falcons. The Cowboys have a few options here with the 7th pick. In my last mock, I had them getting aggressive, moving up for Jeff Okudah. And corner is a need. There's a lot of talented players in the secondary, but Dallas has shelled out so many big contracts that they're not going to be able to pay some of these guys. Chidobe Awuzie, Jordan Lewis, Clinton Dix, Xavier Woods, and I think Anthony Brown as well, are all free agents at the end of next season. And I don't think the Cowboys can pay many of them. I think they might only pay 1 or 2, if that, because Dak's about to get a big deal. Zeke has a big deal. Amari Cooper is a big deal. Jalen Smith is making a lot. DeMarcus Lawrence is making a lot. Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, they're all on big contracts. And I'm sure Dallas is going to want to pay guys like Leighton Vander Esch as well. So I think Dallas is going to have to be conservative with their money and let some of these talented players go. So I think corner is a need. However, so is edge rusher. Robert Quinn was great last year, but he is gone. And they still need someone across from DeMarcus Lawrence. So how about K'Lavon Chaisson out of LSU? Reminds me a ton of Brian Burns from last year's class. Freaky, slim edge rushers coming off the edge. Very athletic guys who can get to the quarterback. Neither of them were great against the run. But let me tell you, if the Cowboys are getting Brian Burns 2.0, I think they'd be very happy with this selection. At pick 18, Josh Jones, tackle out of Houston, going to the Dolphins. I could see Jones go a lot later than this. I really wouldn't be surprised if he gets picked later than most people expect. However, I think the Dolphins are going to go O-line here. I think there are a few guys they could go with. I wouldn't be surprised if they shock us with a player like Austin Jackson or Cesar Ruiz, maybe even a player like Isaiah Wilson. But for right now, we are going to be safe with the most likely option in Josh Jones. Jones is super raw. His technique isn't great. I'm not super high on him. I have a late second-round grade on Jones. I don't think he's as good as people think he is. I think he's solid, and I think he has a lot of upside. Played really well last year, but I don't think he's as good as most believe. At 19, the Raiders going to go A.J. Terrell, cornerback out of Clemson. I just have a gut feeling Terrell's going to be the pick here. I really think it makes sense We know the Raiders like to pick Clemson players, and cornerback is a need. Many people have Jeff Gladney, Christian Fulton, even Noah Igbenogany higher, myself included. However, the Raiders have 2 first-round picks, so why not reach a little bit and get your guy? And I think Terrell makes a ton of sense for Oakland and what they want in a corner. At pick 20, Jeff Gladney at a TCU to the Jaguars. Big fan of this pick. I've been high on Gladney for a while now. Physical, tough corner, solid ball skills. Not the biggest, but he plays big. Jaguars need corner pretty bad, and I think he would slide right in and probably be the best cornerback on the roster. At 21, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, LSU to the Eagles. This is like my 4th straight mock with them picking him. I think the only way Jefferson comes to the Eagles if he's on the board, which will be a question mark. I could see a team like Denver looking him at 15. I think Dallas could surprise some people, go wide receiver. If the Raiders don't pick one at 12, they could pick a wide receiver. Heck, I think Jacksonville would even consider a receiver. So there's a chance Jefferson's not on the board. If he is, I think he will be the pick. Super productive this season at LSU. Really surprised some people at the Combine and turned himself from a borderline first-round pick into a clear first-round pick. And the Eagles need wide receiver really bad. There's some talent there. Alshon Jeffrey, Deshaun Jackson, but it's not great. Both of those guys you cannot trust to stay healthy. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside looks like a bust. And Greg Ward was their top receiver headed into the postseason. Greg Ward. Yikes. So they need a guy to come in. Justin Jefferson will be just that. At 22, I love this pick. Christian Fulton, cornerback out of LSU, going to the Minnesota Vikings. Fulton is a phenomenal player. I really like him. Borderline CB2 for me. Tested pretty well at the Combine. Very productive. He allowed a few too many plays this season, but that's because Derek Stingley was on the other side of him, and nobody wanted to throw the ball anywhere near Stingley. So we got to see more of Christian Fulton than some of his other top corners, and Fulton has really impressed me. I really like him, and I think this will be a great selection for Minnesota. At 23, Jordan Love, quarterback Utah State to New England. I don't think this is going to happen. I don't think Jordan Love will be on the board at 23. I think someone's going to move up for him or select him earlier, and I don't think it will be the New England Patriots. However, since there's no trades, Jordan Love falls here. From pick 7 to 22, I don't think any of those teams are going to go quarterback, assuming the Dolphins pick one at 5. I think the only team that really would consider him is probably Las Vegas, but I personally don't see them going with a quarterback now. So because of that, Jordan Love falls, and I think this is the latest he possibly goes. And I won't be surprised if New England does go elsewhere. I think a guy like Zach Bond out of Wisconsin makes a ton of sense here. He fits this defense really well. But if Jordan Love is available, I think it's going to be hard for Bill Belichick to pass that up. Then at 24, the Saints. They're a team I have my eye on trading for Jordan Love. In my last mock, I had them moving up to 15, trading pick 24 and a first next year. But since there's no trades, they cannot move up. They do not pick Jordan Love. So instead, they're going to go with Kenneth Murray. Very high character kid, great leader, very productive at Oklahoma. He's a player who's really grown on me these past couple months. Maybe a couple months ago, I had a second-round grade on him. But the more I have thought about it, I think Kenneth Murray should be a first-round pick. I have Patrick Queen still ranked slightly ahead of him at off-ball linebacker, but this is still really solid value for New Orleans. And if they pick Murray over Queen, I definitely would not consider it a bad pick by any means. There was a comment made a couple days ago that mock drafters are going to get more picks wrong this year than ever. There's going to be a lot more surprises and a lot more unexpected picks. And I think one of those players who's not going to go where people expect is Brandon Ayuk. A lot of people have him in the early, mid, maybe even late second round. I think he's going to go higher. And I think Brandon Ayuk should absolutely go higher. Super high on him. I have a late first round grade on Brandon Ayuk, one of my favorite prospects in this year's draft. Plays big, good route runner, good size, nice hands. I think this will be a really, really good selection for the Minnesota Vikings, getting, in my opinion, one of my favorite players in this year's class in Ayuk. And this has been a phenomenal first round for the Vikings, adding Fulton and now Brandon here. At 26, Xavier McKinney, safety out of Alabama, going to the Miami Dolphins. They could look at offensive line. I probably would pick Cesar Ruiz personally in this scenario. But I do think they're going to use one first-round pick on defense. They could look at edge. But with K'Lavon Chaisson gone, I don't really think they're going to look at an edge rusher at this point. I think they should look at offensive line. However, I've been going with McKinney instead, who I'm not quite as high on than others. I do really like McKinney. I think he's a really good player. I have an early second-round grade on him. Very solid coverage player. I think he'll be a perfect replacement for Rashad Jones. Not that those two have the same game, but I think having an impact safety in the secondary like Rashad Jones is important, even if those two won't necessarily have the exact same role. At 27, Yetur Gross-Matos, edge rusher out of Penn State to the Seahawks. They need an edge rusher bad. If they don't use this first on a pass rusher, I'd be surprised. In my past 4 mocks, I've had them trading this pick to the Jaguars in exchange for Yannick Ngakoue. I think that makes a ton of sense for both sides. A lot of people think Ngakoue will not fetch a first-round pick because the Jaguars don't really have leverage. And that may be the case, but with a player of Ngakoue's talent, I think the Jaguars could absolutely get one team to bite on the bullet and get a first-round pick for him. But since there's no trades, Yannick Ngakoue ain't going to the Seahawks. So they are going to pick Yetur Gross-Matos here. He's another player who I'm not quite as high on as others. I have an early second-round grade on him. But I think this is still a solid pick for Seattle, fitting a need, getting a pretty talented player. At 28, Patrick Queen, linebacker out of LSU to the Ravens. They just signed Jake Ryan this morning to a 1-year deal. That's not going to change this pick at all. Patrick Queen is a really explosive linebacker. Not the biggest. He's only 6'1", but he has pretty good range, solid coverage skills, explosive, athletic, and the Ravens need someone in the middle of that defense. Since the Ravens became a team, they've had either Ray Lewis or C.J. Mosley for almost all of their tenure. Mosley was gone last year, and I think there was a year in between where they didn't have either Lewis or Mosley. But the Ravens are known for having a tough defense, and I think that starts with the middle linebacker position. Baltimore knows that, and I think Patrick Queen will be a really good player at the next level. Titans at 29, there are a few ways they could go. However, a pick that I've had in my last couple of mocks, so I think makes a ton of sense for them, is A.J. Epinesa out of Iowa. He's the perfect Jurrell Casey replacement, a guy who can get to the quarterback, but also a guy who can stop the run as well. And he was a phenomenal pass rusher as a sophomore. Then he got double-teamed last year, so his numbers were down. But if he's not getting to the passer, at least he can shed blocks and make way for guys like Harold Landry and Jeffrey Simmons and even Vic Beasley to go after the quarterback. And this Titans pass rush is going to be fun. A lot of fun players in that unit, and I really like this pick for Tennessee. At 30, Packer fans are not going to like this. I am a Packer hater, but there's no bias. I don't think this is a bad pick at all. Marlon Davidson, interior defensive lineman out of Auburn. A lot of Packers fans want receiver, and I get it. The Packers need a receiver, but this is a deep class, and Green Bay is a very smart organization. I think they're going to recognize that it's not worth it to pick a receiver round 1. Why not maybe reach a little, get our guy, and then round 2 or round 3, pick a wide receiver who is better value than anyone here at 30. So I think that's what Green Bay is going to do. Marlon Davidson's a really solid player. In my last mock, I had them moving down to pick 34. I had the Colts trading up for Denzel Mims. And I had the Packers picking Davidson. I think this pick makes a lot of sense for Green Bay. Get another player in the middle of that defense. I think this would not be a bad pick. At 31, arguably my favorite player in the class, Noah Igbinoghene, cornerback out of Auburn, to the San Francisco 49ers. Come draft day, I don't think the Niners are going to keep this pick. I think they're going to trade back. I think they're going to keep 13 because Judy or Ruggs or Lamb, whoever's available, is going to be way too hard to pass up. But I do expect them to trade pick 31 because they do not have a selection in the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round. So they got to get some day 2 and early day 3 picks in their repertoire. So I don't expect them to keep this pick, but if they do, I think they could use corner, and Noah Igbinoghene is a player I really like. He's somewhat new to the position. He played wide receiver, then switched over to corner, and I think because of that, he has a plus when it comes to ball skills. Still working on his coverage and technique, but for a raw player, I think he has the ability to become a superstar. I think he's going to be raw day 1. I don't think he'll make a giant impact as a rookie, but I'm a huge fan of his upside. I think he has the chance to be special. And then 32, Chiefs rounding out the first round with Cesar Ruiz, interior offensive lineman out of Michigan. He's mainly a center. He can also play both guard spots. Big fan of Ruiz. He's far and away the best interior offensive line prospect in this draft. He's another player who I think is raw, but I really like his upside, and that's why he's one of my favorite linemen in this year's class. So I think this will be a really good selection here for Kansas City. Another player who I expect to be drafted higher than most expect is Donovan Peoples-Jones, the wide receiver from Michigan. He's going to come off the board here at 33 to the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't think they need a wide receiver as much as people expect, at least right now. And I do think Peoples-Jones is a little bit raw. He can sit behind and get mentored by players like A.J. Green, and I think next year he'll step up and become a regular starter. Really like his ceiling, very athletic player. He has a low floor, though. He wasn't super productive in college. Not really his fault, because Shea Patterson is absolutely terrible. But I do think this is a really solid selection for the Bengals, and Donovan Peoples-Jones is one of the more interesting players in this class. At 34, Denzel Mims, wide receiver, Baylor, to the Colts. I could absolutely see him going in the first round, and I don't see him falling much later than this. I've been high on Mims for a while, had a really good Senior Bowl, had a really good combine, and I think if this wasn't such a deep receiver class, he would go higher, and I won't be surprised if he does go higher. But Indy gets him to fall into their laps, and they will capitalize. Lions at 35 goes Zach Baun, edge rusher out of Wisconsin. I've had him going to the Bengals a lot. I think New England is an option. I think this is the latest he goes, and I think Detroit makes sense. A hybrid pass rusher linebacker. This is the type of player that really fits a New England-style defense. And I think Baun will be a really solid pick for the Lions. At 36, Austin Jackson, tackle out of USC to the Giants. He's raw, but has a lot of potential and could be a really, really good player for them. At 37, Isaiah Wilson, tackle/guard out of Georgia. I think he can play in both positions. I think he's a little bit raw, has some work to do, but the Chargers are getting a lineman who has some really nice upside. Panthers at 38 go Antoine Winfield Jr., the safety out of Minnesota. Really interesting player. He can fly all over the field. Absolutely phenomenal season this year for the Golden Gophers. And I could see him going higher. I could see him as another surprise player into the first round. At 39, the first running back off the board, probably not who you expect, but it's J.K. Dobbins out of Ohio State. Could be DeAndre Swift, but Dobbins had a really, really good season as well this year. And the Dolphins need a playmaking running back on their offense. They signed Jordan Howard. I like that pickup, but he's injury prone. He's not the bell cow back. This is your bell cow back. Just got to make sure the offensive line can keep him upright. Then at 40, Neville Gallimore, interior defensive lineman out of Oklahoma, going to the Houston Texans. This is a run stuffer, ladies and gentlemen. A guy who can shed blocks and make plays in the run game. Not a phenomenal pass rusher, but he does have a very high and athletic ceiling. I think this would be a pretty good selection for At pick 41, the Browns are going to go Grant Delpit, safety out of LSU. Delpit would have been a top 10 pick if he had declared last year, or he would have been in that top 10 range. But because he sort of struggled this season, didn't quite live up to expectations, I think he was a little bit banged up at times. I think that's why he's going to fall here to the second round. Browns have a hole at safety, and if Delpit can live up to his ceiling, Browns are getting a steal. 42, one of my favorite players in this year's class, Jeremy Chin, the safety linebacker hybrid out of Southern Illinois. He's a playmaker. I mean, this guy just makes plays, forces turnovers on the defense. I think he has the size and athleticism to transition not only from just a cover safety, but also at times to an in-the-box linebacker. Kind of like a poor man's Miles Jack almost. Jack isn't a safety, obviously, but I think similar athletic abilities, a lot of versatility on the defense. I think this would be a home run for Jacksonville. At 43, Trayvon Diggs out of Alabama, physical zone corner that the Bears are going to be getting, the brother of Stephon Diggs. I think this is very solid value. He falls to their lap since it's a deep class at this position. Terrell Lewis, edge rusher out of Alabama to the Colts. Colts could use some more guys going after the quarterback. I think edge is an underrated need. And what I mean by that is I think edge is more of a need than most people believe for the Colts. Lewis is a first-round talent. If it weren't for the medical, he would be long gone. But there are some medical question marks with him, and if he can stay healthy, he'll be great. But if he can't stay healthy, then this will be a bad selection. At 45, DeAndre Swift, running back out of Georgia to the Bucs. They got their tackle in round one. Now it's time to make the offense even better. I think they should put more focus on defense, at least use one of these picks on defense. But with DeAndre Swift still on the board, it's going to be hard to pass him up. I think he's a guy who's is the most polished running back. I think he'll be very good right off the rip and open up another layer to this dynamic Buccaneer offense. Obviously, they have great receivers. They're going to be great in the pass. But you also want to be great in the run game as well. And I think DeAndre Swift's going to be a great running back right off the bat. At 46, T. Higgins, wide receiver out of Clemson. Jump ball, 50-50 guy. Didn't test super well at his pro day. Did not test at all at the combine. But this is a big-bodied, physical receiver Get themselves another outside guy across from Cortland Sutton, and I think this will be a solid selection for the Broncos. At 47, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back out of LSU to the Falcons. I could see Clyde getting picked a lot higher than some expect. I could see Clyde as one of the first 2 running backs off the board. But I do have him going here to Atlanta. Falcons fans, you guys need a running back. I know you don't want to hear it. You need a running back. Todd Gurley was signed to a 1-year contract. Todd Gurley cannot stay healthy to begin with. And assuming Gurley's knees continue to be a problem, he'll be gone next season. Falcons are going to need a running back. Why not just pick one here? And Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who I think would probably be the main guy anyway, over Todd Gurley as the season would go along. 48, Ezra Cleveland, offensive tackle, Boise State to the Jets. I'm not an Ezra Cleveland guy. I don't like this pick. I don't think he's all that good. I think he's quite overrated. Tested well at the combine, yes, but I don't think his production warrants a second-round pick. Currently have a 4th-round grade on him, and I think this would be a reach for the Jets. But hey, they're addressing the offensive line. If they're addressing the line, I can't hate this pick too much. Here at 49, the Steelers make their first selection, and I think it's going to be Ross Blacklock, the interior defensive lineman out of TCU. I think this is the latest Blacklock goes. If he's available, he's the pick, but there's a decent chance he isn't going to be available. Super productive player for the Horned Frogs. Had an Achilles injury in 2018. That's a question mark. But talent-wise, this is a nice pick for the Steelers. Get themselves a talented interior guy for their pass rush. Solid against the run as well. Pick 50, Matthew Peart, offensive tackle out of UConn to the Bears. They need an interior line more, but I don't think there's any interior offensive lineman worth this selection. Maybe Jonah Jackson, maybe Robert Hunt. I think it might be a little bit too high for either one of them. So why not go for a tackle who has a lot of upside? Peart is built like a freak, insane wingspan, insane measurables. I think his ceiling is very high, and I think he'll be better off the jump than most expect. So I think this is a really good pick for Chicago. 51, Jalen Johnson, cornerback out of Utah. I have a borderline first-round grade on him. He's a really good prospect. This is a steal for Dallas. How he's on the board blows my mind. Physical, tough corner. This is a guy who's not like C.J. Henderson, doesn't have the gifted cover or ball skills, but is good enough in coverage. Tough player, hustler, going to give 100% effort every single play, and I think he's going to be a really, really good pro. I think he's going to find his way quite nicely in the NFL. Really productive at Utah, and I think this is a steal for Dallas. At 52, Jonathan Taylor, running back, Wisconsin for Rams. The Rams using their first-round pick on a running back. I don't think Los Angeles fans want to see this, but Todd Gurley is gone. Darrell Henderson is not a starting running back in the NFL. Can I please just make that clear? He did not play well last year. I thought a third-round pick was way too high to begin with. So why not get a bell cow back in Jonathan Taylor, who can be the everyday guy from day one? I think Taylor has the skills that give him the highest ceiling for any running back in this draft. His mix of speed and power and agility with all of his production in college, but the weaknesses are also more glaring as well. He has a fumble issue, needs to clean up the fumbles. He might have had too many touches in Wisconsin. His body might be a little bit more worn down sooner than some of these other running backs. He doesn't have as fresh of legs. And Wisconsin is offensive line U. I mean, the reason why Wisconsin has so many running backs go to the league is because they have so many good players blocking for those running backs. Monty Ball was a bust. Melvin Gordon was a good player. And I think Jonathan Taylor will be a good player as well, as long as he can clean up the issues. At pick 53, the Eagles are going to go Willie Gay, a linebacker out of Mississippi State. Some people believe he has character concerns. A lot of the off-the-field stuff is him cheating in school, which is why he got suspended. I don't care if you're cheating in school. That doesn't affect you as a football player. Willie Gay is a really, really talented player. From what I've seen, he's not a bad kid per se, just not good in school, which does not matter in the NFL. You don't need to be book smart to be a good linebacker. Willie Gay is a freak athlete, really solid in coverage, really fluid, and I think this will be a good selection for the Eagles. Pick 54, Curtis Weaver, one of my favorite players in the class, edge rusher out of Boise State. Very productive. He checks most of the boxes off athletically. He doesn't have a ton of bend or burst off the edge, but other than that, I think he has a very high floor. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy who gets you 12, 13 sacks a season, but I think he's going to be a quality edge rusher in this league for a while. Pick 55, Josh Uche, edge rusher out of Michigan to the Baltimore Ravens. Really, really good value here for the Ravens. got to get themselves another pass rusher. Uche is another one of those hybrid-type players. I think the Dolphins would pick him with their next selection. However, since he's gone, they're not going to do that. Uche is a slim, hand not in the dirt guy coming after the quarterback, and I think this is a good pick for Baltimore. So now that the Dolphins likely lost out on their guy, they're going to go with another offensive lineman, Matt Hennessy out of Temple. He'll slide in and play center. Really productive player, one of the more underrated guys in this class. I think this is a nice selection for Miami here late in the second. Rams at 57, going to go linebacker Malik Harrison out of Ohio State. Productive, athletic player. The Rams got to go front seven with one of these two picks. They went with a flashy pick in Taylor, so now it's time to fix up the defense. Corey Littleton is gone. Their front seven is not great. Aaron Donald is still there. He's the best player in football. They were able to bring back Michael Brockers, and Samson Ibukum is solid, but outside of that, they need help at those spots. And Malik Harrison's a guy who I think can make an early impact, athletic linebacker in the middle of that defense. 58, Justin Madubuike, interior defensive lineman out of Texas A&M. Doesn't quite have the motor you would like, but he does have a lot of great skills. Very solid pass rusher. I have a early to mid-third round grade on him, so I'm not as high on him as others, but there aren't many interior defensive linemen on the board better, so I don't think this is a bad pick for Minnesota. 59, Michael Pittman, wide receiver, USC to Seattle. He's a height, weight, speed guy. Big-bodied receiver, but he's fast. He ran a 4.5, which isn't flashy, but for his size and skill set, he's quite athletic, and I think this would be a very solid selection for the Seahawks. He's just a well-rounded player. Doesn't have any clear strengths, but also doesn't have any giant holes in his game. I think this will be a good selection for Seattle. Pick 60, one of my favorite players in the class, Jalen Reagor, wide receiver out of TCU to the Ravens. I don't see him going any later than this. This might be a little bit later than he ends up going. But he's a super talented player. He's another guy who's super athletic, makes a lot of plays after the catch. His production one isn't always there, but sort of like Donovan Peoples-Jones, the quarterback play was also not there, so you can't really blame him. Reagor's not a big guy, but he is a blazer. Ran 4.48 at the combine, but he's faster in game. Then at his self-timed pro day, he ran a 4.28. He might have been gassing himself up there, but I think a 4.28 is a better representation of his speed than a 4.48. And he's just a very good player with the football in his hands, and I think he'll get the ball in this Baltimore offense. Pick 61, Lucas Niang, tackle out of TCU to the Titans. I think they need another tackle. Taylor Lewan isn't getting any younger. Dennis Kelly, serviceable but not special. So why not add another developmental project in there? Niang is a really talented player. I think this is very good value. Medical question marks with Lucas Niang, but the value is excellent here in the late second. Another medical question mark player who is falling is Laviska Shenault, wide receiver out of Colorado. His fall will come to an end. The Green Bay Packers are going to pick him up. Shenault is a guy who you can do a lot of different things with. Explosive receiver. He's a playmaker. You can have him come on jet sweeps. Athletic player. He did not run a good time at the combine, but that's because of an injury. And he doesn't have that injury that derails him. But he does have some durability question marks, and I question if he will be able to stay healthy in the NFL. And that's my big worry with Shenault. That's why he does fall here. But the Packers at this point just cannot pass him up. Too good to let go any farther. Chiefs going to pick up Damon Arnett, cornerback out of Ohio State. Physical press, talented corner. The Chiefs need a corner pretty badly. They lost Kendall Fuller, and since they picked up Cesar Ruiz in the first round, I think you got to go corner here, and Arnett is a really talented player. Then 64, Seattle's going to pick up Prince Tega Wannego, offensive tackle out of Auburn. He's raw. He's new to the game of football, but he has shown a lot of promise. He has some upside, and if I'm Seattle, I would go for a more polished offensive lineman who maybe doesn't have a higher ceiling, but Prince Tega Wannego has a chance to be a really, really solid player in the NFL, so definitely not a bad pick by any means if you're the Seahawks. Down to the Bengals here at 65. They're going to pick up Julian Okwara, edge rusher out of Notre Dame. Okwara's a guy who has a ton of talent, wasn't super consistent at Notre Dame, but has the upside to be really good. The brother of Lions pass rusher Romeo Okwara, I think Julian has the chance to be a serviceably better player than Romeo, who isn't bad. Romeo Okwara is not terrible, but I think Julian Okwara has the ceiling to be really solid. Redskins at 66, going to go Ben Barch, offensive tackle out of St. John's. Washington has multiple holes. They could look at corner here. They could look at wide receiver here. But you got to improve the offensive line. Trent Williams has played his last game as a Washington Redskin. Time to get another tackle. Ben Bartch is a guy who I think is really good, really being slept on, and he's a very talented player, and I think Washington is getting a very solid value selection. Lions at 67, going to go KJ Hamler, wide receiver out of Penn State. Hamler is a playmaker. He's tiny, but he is fast. And you can put him in the slot. You can have him on jet sweeps. You can have him in the backfield even. This will be the X factor of the offense. And what I mean by that is the Taysom Hill of the Lions offense. Obviously, KJ Hamler is not a quarterback, but a role like Taysom Hill where you can put him almost anywhere on the offense and have him do a bunch of different things rather than one set role. I think this will be a really fun pick for Detroit, and as a Lions fan, I think it'd be a good one. 68, Bradley Anae, edge rusher out of Utah to the Jets. I know the Lions like Anae, but with the Zach Bond pick, I don't think we're going to pick back-to-back pass rushers. So the Jets, who are in need of some more pass rushing help, are going to pick him up. Can you please tell me the best Jets edge rusher in the 2010s? I'm waiting. I think the answer is Jordan Jenkins. Not pass rusher in general. I'm talking edge rusher. Not including guys like Sheldon Richardson, Mo Wilkerson, Leonard Williams. No, I'm talking about coming off the edge with some speed and burst and athleticism. The answer is Jordan Jenkins. And not that Jordan Jenkins is bad, but you cannot have Jordan Jenkins as the number one edge rusher. I am sorry. The Jets got to go edge rusher pretty early in this class. Anae doesn't have the craziest length, but he has a lot of production, played well at the Senior Bowl, and I think this will be a good pick for New York. Panthers at 69, nice. Going to pick up Jordan Brooks, linebacker out of Texas Tech. Freak athlete, I really like his ceiling. Pair him up with another freak athlete in Shaq Thompson, and I think that could be a pretty fun middle of that defense. Pick 70, Darrell Taylor, edge rusher out of Tennessee to the Miami Dolphins. Has a few medical question marks, but is a quick, athletic, bendy player coming off the edge. And the Dolphins need pass rushing pretty badly, so why not add a guy here like Darrell Taylor, who is the ceiling to be something quite special. Pick 71, Lloyd Cushenberry, interior offensive lineman out of LSU. Chargers can have him develop as a center. He is really raw, and I'm not a Cushenberry guy. I have a 4th-round grade on him. I don't think he's as good as people think. And I think he's raw. I don't think he's going to be great right off the bat. But the Chargers can groom him, have him become the long-term center, and I think he does have upside. Then 72, a guy who I do like, Akeem Davis-Gaver, linebacker out of Appalachian State, going to the Arizona Cardinals. Hassan Reddick has not worked out. You got Jordan Hicks in the middle of that defense, but why not add another guy in Davis-Gaver, one of my favorite players in this year's draft class. Really, really good value for the Cardinals. I had the 2nd-round grade on him, and this would be a very, very good pick for Arizona. Pick 73, I got Chase Claypool, wide receiver, tight end hybrid, out of Notre Dame going to the Jaguars. Give themselves a new element for their offense. Claypool is a big, athletic guy, sort of like an Evan Engram. I'd say a little bit of a poor man's Engram. I could see him going a lot higher than this. I know New England is quite interested in him. I think he would be their 2nd-round pick if they had one. I could see New England trading down to the early mid-2nd and getting him there. But since New England doesn't have that opportunity, I think this is the latest he goes, right in the 70s range. I could see him as a 2nd-round pick. He probably will be a 2nd-round pick. But this is really good value for Jacksonville. Give themselves a height, weight, speed monster and a big-bodied target to make plays. 74, Robert Hunt, interior offensive lineman out of Louisiana. This pick is simple. Plug and play. He'll start day one at guard. Boom. Done. Good pick for Cleveland. 75, Cole Kmet, the first tight end off the board to the Colts. Very well-rounded tight end. Doesn't excel in any one area, but he's a pretty solid receiver, solid blocker. I think he gives you more of a receiving game. I think he needs to work on his blocking, but I think he's far and away the best tight end in this class, which doesn't say a whole lot because it's a very bad tight end class. 76, Jonah Jackson, interior offensive lineman out of Ohio State, continuing to build up the line. That's the name of the game right now for the Bucs, just making that offense even better for Tom Brady. He'll slide in at guard and make an early impact. 77, Cam Dantzler, cornerback out of Mississippi State. Dantzler is another guy who tested slower than expected at the combine. He ran like a 4.6. Then he ran a 4.39 at his self-tested 40 I don't think he ran a 4.39, but I do think a 4.39 is closer to how he actually plays than a 4.6. How he plays in game, I think he's like a borderline 4.5 guy, which is a good number. He has good quality speed, and the Broncos need another corner. Dantzler is a pretty big-bodied player, and I think this would be a solid selection for Denver. 78, Raekwon Davis, interior defensive lineman out of Alabama. Very productive player. Would have been maybe a first or second if he had declared last year he was eligible. But since he did not, and his stock sort of fell down a little bit, he falls into the third round. Falcons going to swoop him up. 79, Amik Robertson, corner out of Louisiana Tech. Jets fans, here, meet your new nickel corner. I think Robertson will excel at that role in the next level, and this is a good pick for them. And then pick 80. Call the cops because we got a robbery. Kyle Duggar out of Lennar-Rhyne, the safety, to the Oakland Raiders. Very athletic, very high-character player. He only played against Division II, but tested well at the Senior Bowl. Athletic freak, and he's a playmaker. I really like the selection for Las Vegas, as he has a very high ceiling and has a chance to be special. I still call the Raiders the Oakland Raiders. I'm just not used to them being the Las Vegas Raiders. This feels weird. Anyway, pick 81, the Vegas Raiders select Jordan Elliott, interior defensive lineman out of Mizzou. Really good Pro Football Focus guy. I know they love him over there. Pretty good pass rusher, and the Raiders could use some guys in the middle of that defense. Mo Hurst, P.J. Hall are solid, but it doesn't hurt to add another body. Ashton Davis, safety out of Cal to the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not a huge Ashton Davis guy, but I don't think this is awful value. I have a late third, early fourth on him, so this isn't a terrible pick. At 83, Nick Harris, the interior offensive lineman out of Washington. He is a player I'm high on. I had a late second on him. I think this is very good value for the Broncos. Has a lot of upside to be very good in the NFL. At 84, Jonathan Grenner, edge rusher out of Florida to the LA Rams. Give themselves another guy to go after that quarterback. As I said, their front seven is kind of weak, and I think they could use another guy to help that out. At 85, Lions going to pick up Damian Lewis, the guard out of LSU. Guard is a big need for the Lions. Our current starters there are probably Joe Dahl and Kenny Wiggins. Not ideal. So you add Damian Lewis. He'll start at one guard spot. I would assume Joe Dahl starts at the other. And Kenny Wiggins can be that rotational guard, just like last year. I don't know why Graham Glasgow is not an every down player. We essentially sent him out of Detroit, which I think we very underutilized him. Should not have let him go. Pick 86, Cam Akers, running back Florida State to the Bills. Devin Singletary is great, but he's not a bell cow back. Got to get yourselves a bell cow back, and I think that can be Cam Akers. I think he has the potential to be something special. 87, Jabari Zuniga, edge rusher out of Florida to the Pats. It doesn't hurt to get more guys coming after the quarterback. And Zuniga, when healthy, was a really productive player at Florida, but that's when healthy. Pick 88, Drew Brees. This is his last rodeo. I don't see him sticking around after this year. Saints are going to pick his replacement up. And what's the new wave of NFL quarterbacks? Mobility. We're seeing guys like Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, and Kyler Murray shine. Russell Wilson to an extent as well. So I've been going with Jalen Hurts out of Oklahoma. He can sit behind Brees for a year, learn, become a better pocket passer along with his mobile and running abilities. I think this will be a really good pick for the New Orleans Saints. Next up, we got the Minnesota Vikings. They're going to pick up Kenny Willekes, the edge rusher out of Michigan State. Willekes is a guy who's going to have his hand in the dirt, makes an impact against the pass and the run, and he doesn't get enough credit for his athleticism. He posted a video on Twitter the other day. That kid is an athlete. Let me tell you, that was a show to watch. But nonetheless, I think he's not going to be a superstar, but I think he's going to have a role in this league for a long time. Pick 90, Logan Sternberg, guard out of Kentucky to the Houston Texans. Texans have really neglected building around their offensive line. Seems like they're finally getting around to it. Trading for Laramie Tunsil, drafting Max Sharping in the second round last year, drafting Titus Howard in the first round last year. So as long as they can keep improving the line, then I think things will look better in Houston than they are right now. Pick 91, Troy Dye, linebacker, Oregon to the Raiders. I'm a Duck fan. Raiders fans, you're going to love this kid. Super tough football player. Played the last month or two with an injury. Raiders are pretty good at linebacker after free agency, signing Corey Littleton and Nick Kwiatkowski. doesn't hurt to have more. And Troy Dye is a tough football player. He fits the Raiders. 92, McTevin Agim, interior defensive lineman out of Arkansas. Ravens don't really have a lot of needs, so at this point you just got to go for depth. And I think they need depth on the interior defensive line. Calais Campbell's a nice pickup. He's not getting any younger. Derek Wolfe, solid pickup. Not getting any younger. So the point remains, I think it's probably a smart idea for them to focus on the middle of their D-line. Pick 93, Adam Trotman, tight end out of Dayton to the Titans. Delaney Walker's pretty much gone. And the Titans like to have two good tight ends. Jonnu Smith is solid, but they need someone else. And Adam Trotman, I think, would be a solid player. Pick 94, Bryson Hopkins, tight end Purdue, to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers need a tight end. Jimmy Graham is gone. Good move for the Packers, but I think they need someone else. I'm on the fence for my tight end 3. Kmet is my number 1 tight end in the class. Trotman's my number 2, but I'm sort of stuck between Albert Okwuegbunam and Bryson Hopkins. Regardless, I do think Hopkins gets picked higher. This is not what I would do. This is what I think will happen. But I think this is a good pick for Green Bay nonetheless. Pick 95, Logan Wilson, linebacker out of Wyoming to the Broncos. Very productive player. He's really risen the past month or so. And I originally had him going at pick 83 to the Broncos and Nick Harris here. But for the graphics, I had Nick Harris written down for both spots. And since I already did the voiceover for pick 83, I figured I might as well just have Logan Wilson go here. Still not unrealistic to have him fall to this range. And then pick 96, Alex Highsmith, edge rusher out of Charlotte to the Chiefs. Really underrated player. I'm a big fan of him. And I think this will be a good selection for the Chiefs. Get more bodies going after the QB. Browns at 97, going to pick up Brian Edwards, wide receiver out of South Carolina. He's raw but has some upside. He had the catch of the year this season for South Carolina. I think he has the chance to be pretty good with some development. 98, I love this pick a lot. Lynn Bowden, the wide receiver from Kentucky to the New England Patriots. This is a match made in heaven. You want the more athletic, better version of Taysom Hill? Here you go. Bowden has played quarterback. He played QB in high school. He played some quarterback in college. You can have him in the backfield. You could have him as a wide receiver. He does so many different things. So I feel like putting him as a wide receiver here is disrespectful. He's just an offensive playmaker. Like how Isaiah Simmons does not have a set position, neither does Lynn Bowden. 99, Terrell Burgess, safety out of Utah to the Giants. They need depth at that position pretty bad. Isaiah Simmons can play safety. Jabril Peppers can play safety, but it doesn't hurt to add more. 100, Devin Asiasi, tight end out of UCLA to the New England Patriots. They need a Gronk replacement. They do not have one on the roster. Here you go. Maybe Asiasi is not as good as Gronk. Wink, wink. Gronk is a top 5 tight end ever. So, yeah, obviously Asiasi won't be as good. But, you know, this offense loves their tight ends. And I think Asiasi could be a solid pick. And then 101, an interesting one. Tyler Biadasz, interior offensive lineman out of Wisconsin to Seattle. He's a plug-and-play guy. I think he is good enough to start. I don't think he has a super high ceiling. But I could see him go higher just because of his low floor and how good he is right now. So I think for right now, it is a pretty good pick for Seattle. Pick 102, I've got the Steelers picking up Shane Lemieux, the guard out of Oregon. I think he's a really talented player, and I think he could go a lot later than he should. And I think if he does go at 102, I do think this is fair value for him. I think he has a chance to be a pretty good starter in this league. Eagles going to pick up Bryce Hall, corner out of Virginia. Still coming back from that ankle injury he suffered in college of this season. But the medical doesn't concern me too much because Hall does not really have a history of injuries. And I have him as a late first, early second round guy. I think this is a steal. Would have been a top 15 pick at the beginning of the season. Didn't show on the field that he should really dip in stock. It's just the injury that I don't think is career threatening or anything. So this is an absolute steal of a selection for the Philadelphia Eagles. Pick 104, Troy Pride, cornerback out of Notre Dame. As Pride is a very raw player, but I do think he has a lot of upside, and I think he has a chance to be quite a good player. The Rams need corners. Jalen Ramsey's good, Jalen Ramsey's great, but he's not enough. There are a few young players in that secondary who can develop. Taylor Rapp is a safety, though. David Long at corner, maybe, but I think they need another guy there. Sadiq Charles, offensive tackle out of LSU to the Minnesota Vikings. Charles is a very solid player. He performed well this season at LSU, and the Vikings have done a great job this draft at fixing up a line of scrimmage. They need receiver and corner. They addressed those positions in the first round. Now, day 2, they have prioritized fixing up a line of scrimmage, getting stronger, getting more physical, which I like. Pick 106, one of the most interesting players in the class, Antonio Gibson, running back, wide receiver out of Memphis. A lot of scouts thought he would be more of a receiver at the next level. However, I think most scouts have interviewed him as a running back. And I think his mix of versatility and ability to play both spots, I think, makes him a really interesting addition for the Ravens offense, getting themselves a versatile chess piece who can do so many different things, kind of like Lynn Bowden and KJ Hamler earlier in this draft. I think this would be a really good pick for the Baltimore Ravens. Normally, that would be it for the mock. 3 rounds, boom, done. But we got all of day 3 to go through. Now, I'm not going to go in depth over every pick. I'm not going to act like I know all of these guys very well. I'm just going to talk about the interesting picks. And here in the 4th round, just this graphic alone, there are 6 or 7 picks that I do want to talk about in depth, starting with Netane Muti. I went through day 3. Muti's probably my top graded player who I have going in day 3 of this mock draft. I have an early 2nd round grade on him. The medical is why he is available. He has a lot of medical question marks, but he is an absolute mauler. Just a physical freak. He tested 45 reps on the bench. He is strong. He is very, very good. And if it weren't for the medical, he'd be long gone. 108, Albert Okwuegbunam, tight end out of Mizzou, to the Washington Redskins. Jordan Reed is finally gone. That guy needs to retire. He's had too many concussions. So now we're going to get another freak athletic tight end in Okwuegbunam who can step right in and replace him. I think he has a low floor but a high ceiling. He also does have some medical question marks as well. Lions at 109, Devon Hamilton, interior defensive lineman at Ohio State. Very good value selection. I like what we did in the interior defensive line this offseason. Signed Danny Shelton. He'll be the run stuffer. Nick Williams, I think, was a really underrated signing. He'll be a solid pass rusher. So add some more depth there. Add a guy like Devon Hamilton. I think this is a good pick. Giants at 110, Khalid Kareem, edge rusher out of Notre Dame. Solid player, has some medical question marks, but talent-wise is a day 2 pick. At 111, Texans pick Derek Tuszka, edge rusher out of North Dakota State. I got a chance to watch the FCS Championship about 2 weeks ago. First off, North Dakota State's quarterback, Trey Lance, that kid is special. He's going to be a 1st or 2nd round pick once he's eligible. I wanted to keep my eye out for Tuszka because I know he was probably the only legit NFL draft prospect. He wasn't insanely dominant. He was solid, but he didn't really jump out to me. I still think he is a pretty good prospect, and Tuszka could be a nice pick. Chargers at 112. Devin Duvernay, this is a steal. Wide receiver out of Texas. Plug him right in at the slot. I have a 2nd round grade on him. Very good route runner, very good hands. He just gets unlucky because it's a deep class at receiver. 113, Van Jefferson, another steal. Wide receiver out of Florida. He's a big bodied receiver, height, weight, speed. I think he could be this year's Terry McLaurin. He does have some medical question marks, but he's really good. And then 114, Anthony Jennings, edge rusher out of Alabama. He's been productive for the Crimson Tide for a few seasons now. And this is a guy who can go after the quarterback, stop the run. He's a versatile player, and I think this is a very nice selection for Arizona. Now on to the Browns at 115. They go Evan Weaver. I'm not an Evan Weaver guy personally. I don't think he's all that good. I don't think this is terrible value, though, and the Browns do need linebacking help. Joe Schobert is gone. 116 and 117, Jacob Eason and Jake Fromm, quarterbacks out of Washington and Georgia, respectively, going to Jacksonville and Tampa Bay. These 2 guys could go a lot earlier, especially Eason, and I wouldn't be surprised by that. But how this draft is going, I don't see it. I think a team like the Steelers could consider them if New England didn't go Jordan Love. New Orleans could have. They obviously went with Jalen Hurts. So that's why these 2 guys fall a little bit. Starting with Eason, physical tools are there. Big arm, big body. But the intangibles are not great. He's a poor man's Justin Herbert for me. Going to Jacksonville, is Gardner Minshew the answer? Who knows? He showed promise last year, but it doesn't hurt to add another young quarterback in Eason. And then the Bucs added Jake Fromm. I mean, Tom Brady's getting up there in age, obviously. Thanks, Booger McFarland, for that analysis. but it doesn't hurt to potentially look at what they're going to do after Tom Brady. Jake Fromm is a game manager. I think he has the chance to be like an Alex Smith. And if you're picking an Alex Smith in the 4th round, that's very good value. So he'll have Tom Brady to groom him for a couple years, and then has the chance to be the starter. Kevon Wallace at Clemson, the safety to the Broncos. I like him. David Woodward, linebacker, Utah State to the Falcons. Jets add another guard, Ben Bredesen. Raiders get Hunter Bryant, tight end out of Washington. Very athletic player, didn't test super well at the combine, but I think he could be a solid backup for Darren Waller. Neither of those guys are very good blockers, so I think the Raiders might want to add another tight end down the line. And then 122, Colts add another guard in John Simpson out of Clemson. I just forgot the Raiders signed Jason Witten, which is ironic because here's the Cowboys picking a tight end, Harrison Bryant, out of Florida Atlantic. So going back to the Raiders thing for a minute, Jason Witten, also more of a receiver, kind of older. Raiders, can you please sign some blocking tight end out of free agency for me? Thanks. Anyway, Harrison Bryant out of Florida Atlantic. Very productive, not super athletic. Could have tested better at the combine. But the Dallas Cowboys could use another tight end. Dalton Schultz, solid. Blake Jarwin was signed to an extension. He'll be the starter. He's okay, but not crazy. Steelers get Jack Driscoll, offensive tackle out of Auburn. He's a polished player. I think he could do quite well early on. And I don't think he has a super high ceiling, but I think he has quite a high floor for a 4th-round pick. Pats go Marcus Bailey, linebacker out of Purdue. LA Rams get Larrell Murchison, interior defensive lineman from NC State. Eagles get safety Geno Stone from Iowa. Bills get Darnay Holmes, corner from UCLA, a former 5-star recruit. Shows a lot of upside, but is raw and has some work to do. Solomon Kinley, guard, Georgia to the Ravens. And then one of my favorite picks in this entire draft, KJ Hill, wide receiver out of Ohio State to the Saints. Ohio State breeds productive receivers. And KJ Hill is a guy who's not going to wow you. He's not going to be a star, but he's going to be a good number 3 receiver in this league for a while. Saints need another receiver. They signed Emmanuel Sanders, but outside of him, all they got is Michael Thomas. Tre'Quan Smith hasn't really worked out. So I think this is an absolute steal, and KJ Hill will plug right into this puzzle and be an impact maker on day 1 for New Orleans. Another pick I really like is here at 131, Zach Moss, running back out of Utah to the Cardinals. I do have a few running backs graded higher, Anthony McFarland, Darrington Evans, but talent-wise, all 3 of these players I just named should be gone. They're not. Cardinals going to pounce. They got Kenyon Drake, who performed really well after they acquired him, but they're going to need another back. I think Zach Moss can make a pretty early impact for them. Speaking of Anthony McFarland, he doesn't have to wait too much longer. He's going to go to the Vikings here at 132. Dalvin Cook's a free agent at the end of the year. Do the Vikings want to pay him top-tier money? Because that's what he's going to get for the running back position. He has some health question marks over his career and has only been really good last year. So do the Vikings want to pay him the big bucks? That's the question. Regardless, they could use another running back. Alexander Mattison was pretty good last year. Doesn't hurt to add more. McFarland adds more of a speed element to the depth of the backfield. Lakeith O'Tu, interior defensive lineman out of Utah, to the Seahawks. They like their Utah guys. Drafted Marquise Blair and Cody Barton last year. Ravens get Alohi Gilman, safety out of Notre Dame. Steelers pick up Darrington Evans, running back Appalachian State, another guy who I really like. James Conner is solid, but he's not a bell cow back. You need to have a guy next to him. Benny Snell performed pretty well last year. I'm impressed with him. Doesn't hurt to add more, though. Darrington Evans is a really good player. Michael Ojemudia, really nice value, cornerback out of Iowa to the Packers. They got Jair Alexander, who's a stud, but not a lot of cornerback depth. Nick Coe, edge rusher Auburn to the Jaguars. Chiefs pick up Eno Benjamin, running back Arizona State. I'm not as high on him as others, but he is solid. Rounding out the 4th round, these are the compensatory selections. Here in the 4th, starting with the Bucs, they're going to go Gabe Davis, wide receiver UCF. Bucs have not drafted defense yet. That's kind of ironic, but Gabe Davis is a player who I do like. Very intriguing receiver option, and I think he's one of the more underrated players in this class. Jags add Keyshawn Vaughn, running back Vanderbilt. Very athletic running back. If I'm Jacksonville, I am beyond pumped that Leonard Fournette's contract is up. Leonard Fournette is not the guy you want in the locker room. The other day, he said he wanted the Jaguars to sign Cam Newton. No disrespect to Gardner Minshew, but he doesn't want Minshew to be his team's starting quarterback. That's not something you say. You can want your team to sign Cam, but you don't say that. So Fournette's had some other suspensions and character question marks, so if I'm the Jaguars, I am excited to send him out the door. Dolphins at 141, Thaddeus Moss, tight end at LSU. He is so raw. I'm not super high on him. He's very raw, has a lot of work to do, but he has some genes, son of Randy Moss. Redskins at 142 go Tyler Johnson, wide receiver, Minnesota. A lot of people really like Tyler Johnson. I'm not a huge Johnson guy myself. I don't think this is bad value, though. I think there are better receivers on the board, but I don't think Tyler Johnson is awful, and this is a pretty solid pick for Washington. Atlanta goes edge rusher Alton Robinson out of Syracuse. Seahawks get J.R. Reed, safety, Georgia. Eagles get interior lineman Michael Omenwu out of Michigan. Their third interior offensive lineman off the board with Ben Bredesen and Cesar Ruiz. And then the Eagles again going to pick up Jonathan Garvin, edge rusher out of the U. Now on to round 5. I told you we were blazing through these day 3 rounds. Bengals get Joe Baki, linebacker, Michigan State. Panthers get Reggie Robinson II, the corner from Tulsa. Lions get Justin Sternad, linebacker, Wake Forest. I don't know if that's how you say his name. If the Lions end up drafting him, I better know how to say that. I got Jelani Tavai's name wrong until like August, so hopefully if we do get him, I don't mess up his name. Chanye O'Grady, tight end, Arkansas to the Giants, has some character concerns, a lot of off-the-field issues with him, but he is a talented player and does have a nice ceiling. Harrison Hand, cornerback / safety out of Temple. He's versatile, can play most spots in the secondary. Josiah DeGuara, tight end out of Cincinnati to the Carolina Panthers. Dolphins go Isaiah Hodgins. This is a steal. Wide receiver at Oregon State. I'm a Duck fan. I don't like Oregon State, but Isaiah Hodgins is a football player. He has some of the best hands in this draft. 3rd round grade on him. This is a phenomenal value selection for the Miami Dolphins. Maybe the steal of day 3, if not one of the biggest steals. And then Javelin Guillory, cornerback out of Utah, also to the Dolphins. He's a blazer. 2nd fastest 40 time of the combine, just behind Henry Ruggs. Has some upside, but he is fast. He's another guy who can play both corner and safety. So good start to round 5 for the Dolphins. Holy smokes. Minnesota Vikings at 155. Going to go Brandon Jones, safety out of Texas. Jones is a guy who looked like he was going to be a very high pick early in his career, sort of tailed off a little bit, and now he falls to the 5th round. This is pretty good value, though. Rashard Lawrence, interior defensive lineman, LSU to the 49ers. Jaguars get Hakeem Agenji, offensive tackle out of Kansas. Jets get Jacob Phillips, linebacker, LSU. Raiders get Trevis Gibson, edge rusher out of Tulsa. Colts get Anthony Gordon, quarterback out of Washington State. The Colts do not have their franchise QB on the roster. It's not Phillip Rivers. He'll be a stopgap for a year or two. It's not Jacoby Brissett. So you might as well take a flyer on Gordon. We saw a Washington State quarterback last year taken late in Gardner Minshew. That looks like a pretty good value selection. Maybe Gordon will as well. I have Gordon graded as a higher prospect than Gardner Minshew coming out of Washington State, so it's certainly possible. Gordon is my top tier 4 quarterback in this draft. What I mean by that is you got tier 1, which is just Joe Burrow. Tier 2, Herbert, Tua, and Jordan Love. And then tier 3, Jalen Hurts, Jacob Eason, and Jake Fromm. So after those guys, the top, I guess technically day 3 quarterback would be Gordon. If you consider Eason and Fromm day 2 guys, I know most project him there. Bucks at 161, going to go Antoine Brooks Jr., the safety out of Maryland. And then Washington at 162, Trahan Bandy, corner from Miami. Next up at 163, the Bears finally going to get an interior offensive lineman, Yasir Durant from Mizzou. Cowboys at 164, Darnell Mooney, wide receiver, Tulane. Jacksonville at 165, Terrence Steele, offensive tackle from Texas Tech. Lions at 166, I love this pick. A.J. Dillon, running back out of Boston College, power back, tough runner. We need tough runners who can pound their way for a few yards. And we struggled in the red zone at times last year because we didn't have a tough offense. We didn't have guys who could muscle their way in the end zone. To be fair, we did add Bo Scarborough about halfway through the year, and he is more of a power back. He played pretty well, but we need more than what we got in the backfield. Ty Johnson, I don't think is all that special. Bo Scarborough's meh. I love me some Carry On, but he's made of glass bones, it feels like, so you can never trust him when it comes to health. And I want to add another back. I wouldn't be surprised if we draft a back earlier, but if not, really good value here in A.J. Dillon. Got a few interesting receivers coming off the board next to each other. Courtney Davis from A&M to the Buffalo Bills. Eagles going to get Quintez Cephas from Wisconsin. These are guys who are normally borderline day 2, early 4th round picks, but because it is such a deep receiver class, players like these fall to the 5th and 6th rounds, and the Bills and the Eagles are two teams just capitalizing on value. Another interesting receiver, James Proche out of SMU, big sleeper. I think this is nice value for New Orleans. They did just draft KJ Hill earlier. Doesn't hurt to add more. And then the Jaguars at 170 going to go Colby Parkinson, tight end from Stanford. Nearing the end of round 5, the Texans going to go Lamar Jackson, cornerback, Nebraska. Yes, there is a new Lamar Jackson entering the NFL. This Lamar Jackson is not fast. He is not a dynamic athlete, which is why he is on the board. He is a big guy. He's like 6'3". He's a giant at that cornerback position, and his size and some of his production in college warrants probably a day 2 pick, but his lack of athletic ability really hinders his ceiling, and that's why he falls here. Patriots going to go Tyree Phillips, interior offensive lineman from Mississippi State. Dolphins get Javaris Davis, cornerback from Auburn. Titans get Jason Strowbridge, interior defensive lineman from North Carolina. And the Packers, nice value here at 175, John Hightower, talented wide receiver from Boise State. San Francisco at 176, going to go Kyle Murphy, interior offensive lineman out of Rhode Island. Chiefs pick up Khalil Davis, interior defensive lineman from Nebraska. Broncos at 178, one of my favorite players in this year's draft class. I haven't gotten to really talk about him yet at all throughout this pre-draft process, so now I'm excited that I finally get to. Antonio Gandy-Golden, wide receiver from Liberty. He's a big guy, pretty athletic, good jump ball receiver. I think he's another guy who has a high ceiling as a jump ball guy. I think he has a chance to be a pretty good player at the next level. And he's another guy who's a late day 2, early day 3 pick, but because of the deep receiver class, he falls. Then James Lynch, interior defensive lineman out of Baylor. Some people might classify him as an edge rusher. I like his versatility, and I think this is a really, really nice selection here at 179 for the Cowboys. Now on to round 6, Bengals going to start with picking cornerback Josiah Scott from Michigan State. Broncos go DJ Wonnum, edge rusher, South Carolina. Lions get Tanner Muse, safety from Clemson. He's Deion Sanders type of player, those white guys who you don't expect to be athletes, and they turn out a 40 time. Tanner Muse is fast. So I think this could be a pretty interesting pick as a developmental safety for Detroit. Giants get Joe Reed, really nice value here at 183, the wide receiver from the University of Virginia. Reed has really good hands, and he's another guy who I think would be picked higher, but it's a deep receiver class. Giants capitalize. Panthers get Jake Luton, quarterback, Oregon State, sleeper for a lot of people. Dolphins get Shaq Quarterman, linebacker, Miami. He's been productive for a while. A lot of people thought he was going to be a high draft pick last year. Stayed in school. Probably wouldn't have been a high draft pick last year when it was all said and done. Stayed in school, but didn't really help his case too much, and he falls here to the 6th. Patrick Taylor, running back Memphis, to the Chargers, and then the Browns. This is a fun name. Oluwole Betiku, the edge rusher out of Illinois. Jacksonville going to add another cornerback, Isang Bassi out of Wake Forest. Eagles going to pick up running back Sewu Oloniula. I hope I said that right, out of TCU. This guy's big. He's built like a linebacker, and he is a freak. Really fun pick for the Eagles. I'm curious to see how his NFL career goes. Jets at 191, Dalton Keene, tight end, Virginia Tech. Packers at 192, James Morgan, quarterback, Florida Atlantic. This is an interesting pick. James Morgan grew up in Wisconsin, diehard Packer fan, modeled his game after Aaron Rodgers. Now he gets the chance to be drafted by his hometown team. The Packers were linked to Drew Lock last year in the late first. They were linked to Jordan Love a little bit this year. I don't see Green Bay picking a quarterback this year. They didn't last year. They won't this year early. But I do see them taking a shot here with a guy like James Morgan. Colts get Calvin Throckmorton, tackle out of Oregon. He can also play guard. And I think this is a really good value pick for the Colts. Broderick Washington, interior defensive lineman out of Texas Tech, to the Bucks. Justin Herron, offensive tackle, Wake Forest, to the New England Patriots. And then the Bears at 196, Kalijah Lipscomb, wide receiver, Vanderbilt. Here at 197, this is the Colts' final pick, and I was considering kicker. I was considering the meme himself, Rodrigo Blankenship. However, Joshua Kelly is a really interesting prospect, the running back out of UCLA, so I do have the Colts picking him. Trayvon Hill, edge rusher, Miami to the Steelers. Keith Ismail, interior offensive lineman, San Diego State to the Rams. That's the infamous Tom Brady pick, by the way, 199. At 200, Michael Warren II, running back, Cincinnati to the Chicago Bears. Vikings add Cameron Clark, interior offensive lineman, Charlotte. Jared Pickney, he was supposed to be a high pick towards the beginning of the season, tight end. Vanderbilt to the Cardinals. Tipa Galeai, I don't know how to say that. I think it's Galeai. Edge rusher from Utah State. He's an interesting guy. I think he originally went to Baylor or TCU, one of those Big 12 schools. Eventually transferred because of some off-the-field stuff. He does have some minor character question marks. But he was really productive at Utah State, and this is a pretty interesting pick for the Saints. And then 204, Shaheem Carter. Safety, Alabama to the Patriots. Pretty productive in college. He made a big impact on this Crimson Tide defense. Wasn't all that great this year. Probably would have looked like a high pick towards the beginning of the season. Xavier McKinney sort of took the stardom at safety, but Shaheem Carter is a really interesting player. And at 204, I think this is not a bad pick at all for New England to take a shot. Here at 205, Vikings going to add another pretty underrated receiver with a sick name, Hasise Dubois, out of the University of Virginia. Him and Joe Reed are one of the more interesting receiver tandems in college football. They are two good players, and I think this is a nice selection for the Vikings. Jaguars get Davion Taylor, linebacker, Colorado. Raekwon Williams, interior defensive lineman, Michigan State, to the Bills. And then the Packers with back-to-back picks go running back, LaMichael Pirine from Florida, and Michael Divinity Jr., the linebacker, out of LSU. 49ers going to pick up Trey Adams, offensive tackle, Washington. Adams, a couple years ago, was projected to potentially be a top 5, top 10 pick, but then some medical question marks came up, and he feels like he's been in college for a good decade now. I think it was like 2018, at the beginning of like the 2017 season, he was supposed to be a top 10 pick in that draft. Here we are years later, where he still had some eligibility left. That was a redshirt senior, finished his career, and will fall to 210, where the Niners will pick him up. Jets get Bravion Roy, interior defensive lineman from Baylor. Patriots with back-to-back picks go Lavert Hill, cornerback from Michigan, and then Carlos Davis, interior defensive lineman from Nebraska. His twin brother Khalil Davis was picked earlier by the Chiefs. And then Seattle at 214, Steven Montez, cornerback, Colorado. He has a lot of talent. Never really progressed, I think, the way that Colorado fans were hoping for, but he has some talent and some upside. Seattle could use another quarterback. Russell Wilson ain't getting any younger. He has a lot of time left in the tank, so I don't think Seattle's worried about that in the slightest. But kind of like Green Bay, kind of like Indianapolis, doesn't hurt to take a shot. Bengals at 215, going to kick off the 7th and final round by selecting Tyler Clark, interior defensive lineman out of Georgia. Redskins get DJ Davis, running back, Miami. Going to the Niners, Kenny Robinson, safety, West Virginia. Raymond Calais, running back, Louisiana, to the Giants. Vikings get Micah Walker, linebacker, Fresno State. Francis Bernard, a linebacker from Utah, going to the Chargers. Darrell Williams, interior offensive lineman out of Mississippi State, to the Panthers. He's a guy who's been productive. Could have been a high pick last year had he declared. Decided to stay in school. Towards the beginning of draft season, he looked like he was going to be a day 2, day 3 pick. Then it feels like he's fallen off the face of the earth. Now he's here in the 7th. And then Austin Mack, wide receiver, Ohio State, going to the Cardinals. Jaguars going to pick up Julian Blackmon, safety out of Utah. Titans get JaMycal Hasty, running back, Baylor. 225, Mitchell Wilcox, tight end, USF, to the Ravens. Bears get Kaliki Hudson, a safety linebacker hybrid from Michigan. He's been a very versatile, productive player for a few years now. One of the more intriguing prospects here late in the draft. Colton McKivitz, offensive tackle, West Virginia, to the Dolphins. Jake Hansen, center, Oregon, to the Falcons. Redskins going to get Tristan Colon Castillo, an interior lineman out of Mizzou, an interior offensive lineman to be exact. And then running back Reggie Corbin from Illinois going to the New England Patriots. Cowboys at 231 going to end their draft with a quarterback. Cole McDonald had a farm, E-I-E-I-O. The QB from Hawaii, he has an arm and has some raw traits, but has some work to do. Colin Johnson, wide receiver, Texas, to the Steelers. Big bodied guy, could have been a third or fourth rounder last year. A lot of people still think he'll be a fourth or fifth this year. I have him slipping. I have some of these other receivers, guys like Isaiah Hodgins, Quintez Cephas, Courtney Davis, guys like that going ahead of him. Johnson's a big guy, but isn't super athletic, and it doesn't hurt for the Steelers to take him here. This isn't bad value at all. Christian Rector, edge rusher, USC, to the Bears. Isaiah Coulter, wide receiver, Rhode Island, to the Rams. Braden Mann, punter, Texas A&M, to the Lions. We do not have a punter currently. Sam Martin signed with the Broncos. Time to get a replacement. Zach Shackelford, interior offensive lineman, Texas, to the Packers. Titans getting Dante Olson, linebacker, Montana. He had a great combine. Very athletic. Could be something in the league. And then cornerback Dane Jackson out of Pitt going to the New York Giants. Bills going to select Dele Harding, linebacker, Illinois. The Houston Texans at 240. Muhammad Barry, linebacker, Nebraska. Pats at 241. Scott France, offensive tackle, Kansas State. Packers get John Runyon, offensive tackle out of Michigan. Titans get Neville Clark, cornerback, UCF. Browns get quarterback Nate Stanley out of Iowa. He got a 40 on his Wonderlic test, by the way. Smart guy. Kamal Martin, linebacker, Minnesota, to the Niners. And then the Dolphins going to pick up Jawan Johnson, big-bodied receiver out of Tennessee. Another guy like Colin Johnson didn't test super well at the combine, does not have the best athletic traits, but for production is there, the size is there, could be something at the next level. Now on to the compensatory picks here for the 7th round, starting and ending with the Giants. They're going to start with Gage Cervenka, interior offensive lineman from Clemson. Texans get Joey Magnifico. That's a sick name. Tight end out of Memphis. Vikings get A.J. Green, cornerback, Oklahoma State. Another same name. We had Lamar Jackson. Now we got A.J. Green. Isn't that ironic? We need the Steelers and Browns to get these two guys just for the heck of it. Speaking of heck, Charlie Heck, offensive tackle, North Carolina, to the Texans. See how I played that? I didn't even mean to do it like that. And then Dolphins at 251, running back Darius Anderson from TCU. Now the final 4 picks of the draft, and we got some interesting ones. Starting with Kendall Vilder, cornerback out of Georgia Southern. He's a really talented nickel corner. I think he could make an impact in this league, and I think he could pretty early. Vikings at 253 pick up Mason Fine, quarterback, North Texas. He puts up numbers. He has an arm. Once again, doesn't hurt to take a shot, I suppose. Kirk Cousins isn't the long-term answer. He's the guy for the next 3 or so years, but he's probably not going to be all that great after those 3 years end on his contract. Broncos get Jalen Hawkins, safety out of Cal, and then Mr. Irrelevant, the New York Giants select Benjamin Victor, wide receiver, Ohio State, part of that talented receiving core. KJ Hill, he was picked earlier. Austin Mack was picked earlier. Chris Olave is a very good player. He'll be an NFL player in the future. But the Giants are going to end this draft off with Benjamin Victor. Hope you guys enjoyed it. 255 picks. That's a lot. This definitely took some time to make, but I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and subscribe if you're new. Deuces.